Thank you for installing aPersona Identity. We think you will be pleased with how easy it is to install and operate. aPersona Identity is Identity Reimagined and sets a new bar for making private cloud identity affordable, powerful, and easy to use. If you have any questions during your install, please reach out to us at apersona.com and click the Contact and Support link. Welcome to the aPersona Identity Installation Prerequisites. In this video, we will be configuring the prerequisites for an aPersona Identity Services installation in a private AWS account for a made-up company named Weave AI. As you can see in this diagram, the green box is our private Weave AI AWS service account. Once installed, the aPersona Identity Service will interface with the aPersona Adaptive Security Manager, ASM for short, SaaS service as shown by the blue box. So let's begin with the prerequisites. We have just a few things to do. In this section of the prerequisites, we will cover setting up an AWS test account if one does not already exist, and showing how to set up the domain and DNS settings for the installation. These are both required for the aPersona Identity installation. First, if an AWS account does not already exist, we simply follow the link as shown on the screen to set up an AWS test account. Then return back to this video to continue. Once our AWS account is set up, we will need to configure a domain in the AWS domain service called Route 53. Either a domain already exists or we will be creating a new domain for the install. We will cover both use cases. For the domain prerequisite, if a root domain does not already exist, we can easily buy one from AWS Route 53. We simply navigate to the AWS Route 53 dashboard and fill in the domain name field under the section Register Domain and click the check button. If the domain is available, we simply click on the Select button to purchase the domain. Once this is done, the domain setup prerequisite would be completed. If on the other hand we already own a domain that we want to use, then we can simply create a new hosted zone with a subdomain name in our new AWS test account, shown as step 1. When we do this, Route 53 will automatically generate 4 NS records for the subdomain. Then in our root domain account, we add a new NS record to the root domain, shown as step 2, and then copy and paste the NS records from our aPersona Identity AWS account Route 53 domain to the new NS record and save it, shown as step 3. At this point, the domain setup prerequisite would be completed. Now let's configure the domain prerequisite in the AWS account we created for our made-up company, Weave AI. In our case, the root domain, weaveai.net, already exists and is already set up in a different AWS account. So in our aPersona Identity AWS account for Weave AI, we simply create a new hosted zone, id.weaveai.net, shown as step 1. You can see the created NS records. Let's copy them to the clipboard. Now moving over to the AWS account that owns the root domain weaveai.net, we simply add a new NS record ID to the primary domain, shown as step 2. Then we paste the NS records from step 1 into the new NS record and save it. At this point, the domain setup prerequisite is completed for our aPersona Identity installation, and we have a new hosted zone, id.weaveai.net, fully configured. Google reCAPTCHA. aPersona Identity seamlessly integrates into the invisible Google reCAPTCHA service to help prevent login attempts from bots and machines. For our use case, Google reCAPTCHA is free to use. In this section, we will demonstrate how to create a Google reCAPTCHA, site key, and secret key for your domain. This is optional but recommended. If you do not already have a Google account, please navigate to gmail.com and create a personal Google account. Then return to this portion of the video. Once you have a Google account, log in, then navigate to google.com/reCAPTCHA/admin/create. On this screen, we simply fill in a few fields and submit the form. First, create a label. Here we just use the primary domain name. Second, select the score-based v3 option. Third, type in your primary domain, not your subdomain if you're using one. Fourth, agree to the T's and C's and click Submit. Google will display your reCAPTCHA site key and a secret key. Copy and save these for later. This prerequisite is now complete. aPersona Identity Email Account. aPersona Identity requires an email account that will use to send alerts, one-time passcodes, and notifications to administrators and end users. You may use any email account you wish that can support sending emails via SMTP or SMTPS. In our demonstration, we will be using the same Google account we used in the last section to create our reCAPTCHA keys. Setting up Google email for SMTP sending requires a couple of settings. To use a Google email, we must ensure we have two-factor setup and also an app-specific password. So for our install, let's set these up in our Google account. First, we log into our Google account. Then, navigate to myaccount.google.com/security to configure two-factor authentication. And last, we navigate to myaccount.google.com/app-passwords to create an app-specific password. Copy and save your app-specific password for later. We are now finished with all the prerequisites. Please continue with the next video. aPersona Identity Installation. And thank you for watching.